MCU versus comics, the biggest character changes. Hey there, Marvel fans. Ever notice that your favorite superheroes on the biggest screen aren't exactly the same as their comic book counterparts? The Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, has taken the world by storm, bringing decades of comic book history to life with a fresh twist. From Iron Man's snarky one-liners to Thor's newfound sense of humor, the MCU has reimagined our beloved characters in ways that have both excited and surprised us. In today's video, we're diving deep into the biggest character changes between the MCU and the original Marvel comics. We'll explore how some heroes and villains have been altered, sometimes subtly, other times dramatically, as they've leaped from page to screen. Whether it's personality shifts, origin story tweaks, or entirely new story arcs, these changes have shaped the way we experience the Marvel Universe. Grab your popcorn and settle in as we compare the comic book legends to their cinematic versions. We'll be covering heavy hitters like Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, the Hulk, Black Widow, and many more. Plus, we'll touch on some of those mind-blowing storylines that didn't quite make it into the movies. Ready to see how your favorite characters stack up? Let's get started. Iron Man, Tony Stark. First up, the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist himself, Tony Stark. In the MCU, Tony is the charismatic, quick-witted hero we all love. But did you know that in the comics, he's a bit more buttoned up? While Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal brought a sarcastic charm to the character, comic book Tony is often depicted as more serious and introspective. Let's talk origin stories. In the MCU, Tony is injured and captured in Afghanistan, leading to the creation of his first Iron Man suit. In the comics, however, this event takes place during the Vietnam War. The change modernizes his story, making it more relatable to today's audience. And what about his suits? In the comics, Tony's technology is advanced, but the MCU takes it to a whole new level with nanotech and AI integration. Plus, some major comic book arcs like Demon in a Bottle, which deals with Tony's struggle with alcoholism, are hinted at but never fully explored on screen. Overall, while the MCU's Tony Stark captures the essence of the character, there are notable differences that make his journey unique in the films. Pretty interesting, right? Thor Odinson. Next, let's swing our hammers over to Thor Odinson. In the comics, Thor is traditionally portrayed as a noble and serious warrior, often speaking in Shakespearean tones. But the MCU took a different path, especially from Thor Ragnarok onward, giving him a more comedic and relatable personality. This shift added layers to Thor's character, showing us a god who isn't just about thunder and lightning, but also about personal growth and even a sense of humor. In terms of powers, comic Thor is often depicted as virtually invincible, battling cosmic entities with ease. The MCU toned this down a bit, giving him vulnerabilities and challenges that make his victories all the more satisfying. When it comes to mythology, the comics delve deep into Norse legends, introducing a vast array of gods and realms. The films simplify this, focusing on key players and streamlining the lore for general audiences. Thor's relationships in the comics include numerous romances and alliances that the movies haven't touched on yet. So while the MCU's Thor might be more laid-back and humorous, both versions offer a fascinating look at the God of Thunder. Captain America, Steve Rogers. On to the Star-Spangled Man with a Plan, Captain America. Steve Rogers' journey from a scrawny kid in Brooklyn to a super soldier is iconic in both mediums, but there are some key differences to unpack. In the comics, Steve's pre-serum life is heavily influenced by the Great Depression, shaping his strong moral compass and sense of justice. The MCU captures his heroic qualities, but adds more nuance to his personality, highlighting his struggles with modern societal values and the complexities of leadership. One major difference is his timeline. Comic Cap has stories that span multiple eras, including the 1950s and beyond, often involving time travel or retcons. The MCU streamlines this, keeping him primarily in the 21st century after being frozen in ice. And let's talk about those significant storylines. The infamous Hail Hydra reveal in the comics turned the fandom upside down, but it's nowhere to be found in the films. This and other comic arcs add layers to Steve's character that the movies have yet to explore. In essence, while both versions embody heroism and integrity, the nuances of their experiences set them apart in interesting ways. Hulk, Bruce Banner. Now let's get smashing with the Hulk. Bruce Banner's alter ego is one of Marvel's most complex characters, but the MCU and comics portray his struggles differently. In the MCU, Bruce's transformations are primarily triggered by anger or stress, and over time, he learns to control the Hulk persona, eventually merging the two in Smart Hulk. In the comics, transformations are tied to multiple factors, including the time of day and his emotional state beyond anger, leading to various versions like Grey Hulk and Professor Hulk. Bruce's internal battle with the Hulk is more deeply explored in the comics, delving into his psyche and the multiple personalities within him. Story arcs like World War Hulk, where Hulk returns to Earth seeking vengeance after being exiled, showcase a level of depth and intensity that the films haven't fully captured. The Hulk's persona in the comics ranges from a mindless brute to a genius-level strategist, offering a wide spectrum of storytelling possibilities. The MCU has taken a more streamlined approach, focusing on the balance between Bruce and his greener half. It's a smashing good time comparing the two, wouldn't you say? Black Widow. Stealthily moving on to Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. The MCU introduced us to a skilled spy with a mysterious past, but the comics paint an even more intricate picture. In the comics, Natasha is a Russian spy enhanced with a variant of the super soldier serum, slowing her aging and enhancing her abilities. Her origin story is steeped in Cold War espionage, making her over 70 years old while appearing youthful. The MCU touches on her past, but doesn't delve into these enhancements or her extended lifespan. Natasha's skills in the comics include mastery of various weapons and advanced technology, sometimes wielding energy weapons or donning specialized suits. The films focus more on her hand-to-hand combat and firearms expertise. Her associations are broader in the comics, involving teams like the Champions, and relationships with characters like Daredevil and Bucky Barnes. These connections add depth to her character that the movies haven't fully explored. All in all, while the MCU's Black Widow is a formidable force, the comic version offers a richer history and expanded abilities that fans continue to enjoy. Hawkeye, Clint Barton. Aiming our sights on Hawkeye, Clint Barton. Often the underdog of the Avengers, Clint's comic and MCU portrayals have notable differences worth checking out. In the comics, Clint's origin story begins in a circus, where he hones his archery skills and eventually becomes a reluctant hero. The MCU skips the circus act, presenting him straight away as a S-Healed agent with top-notch skills. Personality-wise, Comic Clint is known for his wit, sarcasm, and sometimes reckless behavior. He's a bit of a wisecracker, adding levity to serious situations. The MCU's Clint is more reserved, with a dry sense of humor and a strong focus on his family life, a storyline unique to the films. Visually, Hawkeye's comic costume is more flamboyant, featuring a purple suit and mask. The movies opted for a tactical, muted look, which is more practical but less flashy. And let's not forget his alter ego, Ronin. In the comics, Clint takes on this darker persona, leading to some intense story arcs. The MCU briefly touched on Ronin in Avengers Endgame, but didn't explore it in depth. So, while both versions hit the mark, they offer different takes on the Master Archer. Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff. Let's conjure up some magic with Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff. Arguably one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Universe, Wanda's comic book history is rich and complex. In the comics, Wanda is the daughter of Magneto, making her a mutant with innate powers. The MCU, due to rights issues at the time, introduced her abilities as the result of exposure to the Mind Stone, skipping over her mutant heritage. Her powers in the comics are vast, including reality warping and probability manipulation. Events like House of M showcase her reality-altering abilities, leading to massive consequences. The MCU has gradually expanded her powers, especially in WandaVision, but hasn't fully reached the comic levels yet. Relationships play a crucial role in her character development. In the comics, her connections with mutants, including her brother Quicksilver and father Magneto, shape her journey. The films have downplayed these aspects, focusing more on her relationship with Vision. Wanda's transformations from hero to antagonist and back in the comics add layers to her persona. The MCU is starting to explore her darker side, but there's still a wealth of material to be mined. Magical, isn't it? Vision. Floating over to Vision. The synthetic Avenger has a captivating origin in both the comics and the MCU, but with some key differences. In the comics, Vision is created by Ultron using the body of the original Human Torch android and the brain patterns of Wonder Man, giving him a unique connection to heroes and villains from the start. The MCU simplifies this by having Vision created through a combination of Jarvis's AI, the Mind Stone, and vibranium, courtesy of Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. Vision's quest to understand humanity is a central theme in both versions, but the comics delve deeper into his struggle with emotions and identity. He even attempts to create a family in the comics, an arc that inspired elements of WandaVision. His powers are fairly consistent, with intangibility and energy projection, but the comics often showcase more advanced abilities and modifications, including changes in his density and strength. While his relationship with Wanda is prominent in both, the comics explore additional connections, including leadership roles in the Avengers and conflicts arising from his artificial nature. The MCU's Vision may have met an untimely end, but who knows what the future holds. Spider-Man, Peter Parker. Swinging into action with Spider-Man, Peter Parker. The friendly neighborhood hero has had multiple cinematic interpretations, but let's focus on the MCU's take versus the comics. Interestingly, the MCU skips over Peter's classic origin story. The radioactive spider bite and Uncle Ben's tragic death are only alluded to. This contrasts with the comics, where these events are foundational to his development as a hero. In the comics, Peter is a self-made hero, crafting his own suit and gadgets. The MCU introduces him as Tony Stark's protege, receiving advanced suits and tech from Iron Man. This mentorship adds a new dynamic, but alters his character's independence. Supporting characters also differ. Aunt May in the comics is traditionally an elderly woman, while the MCU presents a younger, more energetic version. MJ and Ned are reimagined, blending characteristics from various comic characters to create fresh takes. Key villains like Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus have yet to fully enter the MCU, though Spider-Man No Way Home began to change that. Classic comic storylines, such as the Clone Saga, remain unexplored in the films. Both versions capture Spidey's essence, but with their own unique spins. Thwip thwip! Thanos. Now let's delve into the Mad Titan, Thanos. In the MCU, Thanos is a complex villain with a twisted sense of justice, aiming to balance the universe by wiping out half of all life. But in the comics, his motivations are a bit more romantic. Comic Thanos is obsessed with Mistress Death, the embodiment of death itself. His genocidal quest is driven by a desire to win her affection, making his actions both grandiose and personal. This element adds a mythical layer to his character that's absent in the films. When it comes to acquiring the Infinity Stones, or gems as they're known in the comics, Thanos employs cunning strategies and dark alliances. The MCU streamlines this process, focusing on the physical quest and battles rather than the cosmic manipulations seen on the page. Personality-wise, comic Thanos is exceedingly ruthless, often indulging in elaborate schemes and shows of power simply because he can. The MCU presents a more stoic and philosophical antagonist, who, despite his heinous actions, believes he's making the hard choices for the greater good. His relationships with other cosmic beings, like his granddaughter Nebula and even entities like Eternity, add depth to his comic portrayal. The films touch on some of these but don't fully explore them. Now that's a Titan-sized difference. Other notable changes. Before we wrap up, let's shine a spotlight on a few other characters. Ant-Man, Scott Lang. In the comics, Scott's journey is closely tied to his daughter Cassie's health issues, which lead him to steal the Ant-Man suit. The MCU captures this but adds a stronger comedic element and a mentorship with Hank Pym that differs from the comics. Guardians of the Galaxy. This ragtag team's comic origins are quite different. Characters like Drax and Gamora have more complex backstories, often involving deeper ties to Thanos and other cosmic entities. The movies focus on humor and team dynamics, creating a lighter tone. Doctor Strange. Comic Stephen Strange starts off arrogant but quickly becomes a humble sorcerer supreme after his accident. The MCU emphasizes his arrogance longer, extending his journey toward humility and mastery of the mystic arts. Overall, a general trend is the simplification of complex histories and relationships to make them more accessible on screen. While some depth is lost, it opens the door for a wider audience to enjoy these fantastic stories. And there you have it, folks. The MCU has done an incredible job bringing our favorite superheroes to life, even if it means making some changes along the way. From altered origins to personality tweaks, these differences highlight how adaptations can offer fresh perspectives while still honoring the essence of the characters. For comic book purists, some omissions might be disappointing, but for new fans, the films provide an exciting gateway into the Marvel Universe. The impact on audiences is huge, sparking conversations, debates, and a shared love for these heroes and villains. Ultimately, the balance between staying true to the source material and innovating for the screen is a delicate one. But it's this very balance that keeps the stories alive and evolving. So what do you think? Do you prefer the comic versions or the MCU takes? Let's keep the discussion going. Comment below with your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay super.